Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to today's Reddit Quickie from the subreddit HFY, called Pack Protection. Written by Regal Legal Eagle. The link to the original will be down below. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. This is a terrible idea. I'm telling you, this can't end well. You don't know these creatures. Just wait for the diplomatic services to get some specialists out here. Nat One snorted at his partner, kept trying to get him not to do his job. Their job. He'd never known Feck to back down from any assignment before. From busting Regalian drug lords to wrestling Kawanian thugs, barehanded. So why was this, of all the calls, making him so pathetic? You've got to be kidding me. This isn't even an active shooting, which I know you've always shown up for before. This is a child services needing help. How could you possibly turn your back on children? He asked and glared at his partner, who was already shaking his head. I'm not. That's what I've been trying to explain to you. You didn't listen to the call. They're trying to arrest a human for illegal adoption. Don't you get what that means? That one frowned as his friend asked him that and tried to think it over for a moment. That they're illegally adopted children isn't that straightforward. You read the report. They're mixing herbivore, carnivore, and omnivore species in the same dwelling. That's illegal and unsafe. Plus, they attacked the service worker. This seems entirely straightforward to him. Why was his partner protesting so heavily? Yes, but it's a human. They're pack builders. To them, the bonds of family can be intensely strong. And they don't even need to be related to who they consider family. Haven't you heard of a new program pairing them with other species on the force? Every other team is two of the same species, but they build bonds to go past that. I'm telling you that the children are safe, and if you try to take them from their pack leader, nothing good will come of it. Nat One snorted once more and shook his head. He was done listening to his partner's warning. Enough! We are all species are meant responsible for the law that we uphold. I will not allow exceptions. I'm going up there. Now, are you coming with me? He thought at the very least he could shame Feck into coming, but to his surprise, his partner shook his head. I'll go get the medkit from the trunk and wait here for you. Nat One's eyes widened for a moment as his partner got out of the speeder and walked around to the trunk. Unbelievable, he muttered and got out before looking around the area. They were at the edge of the city in a base of a hill. There were various plants and crops that looked like planted in various rows and designs heading up the hill. And up top, they had to blink twice to make sure that he was really seeing what he thought he was seeing. First of all was the ship. Somehow, someone had landed a ship on top of the small hill dozens of kilometers from a spaceport. Second, it looked like something he'd seen in the history text. It looked like it was held together with adhesive tape and polysealant. Then there was the creatures around the base packing up what was apparently had been makeshift houses, or a series of shacks, into the cargo hold of the old ship, while the others harvesting what plants and crops around the area were ready for consumption. Or that's what he assumed. He was a security aid professional, after all, and not a farmer. What surprised him on top of that were the species in question. Just like the call had said, there were carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores, all working together to pack up and get the ship ready for leaving, it seemed. When he began to walk up the hill, he heard a loud whistle that sounded like a Terrellium hawk. But that couldn't be right. Even so, he saw children ahead of him stop what they were doing and then quickly retreat into the ship or around it. That's when he saw the perpetrator step out of the ship. He wasn't over familiar with humans, but seeing as the pinkish fleshy creature didn't look anything else, that's what he figured he was looking at. They were supposed to be mammalian, so he supposed that this was a female. She was wearing an old pressure suit that had been patched up much like the ship and was the color of rust, and the silver patches of adhesive tape weren't holding it together. She was perhaps half a meter shorter than him, but even as he approached, she didn't show any signs of being intimidated and walked out to meet him. Setting her hands on her hips, she looked up at him and him down at her. So which infraction are you here for anyway? When she said that, Nat One frowned. Which infraction? You wanted more than one. To his surprise, she nodded. Building a house without a permit, illegal parking, selling produce without a license, operating a spacecraft, something that goes with social work out here, and now you, SAP. She was just using an acronym for his position, as she didn't like the way that his female said it. Illegal adoption, he growled and pointed to some of the kids that he could see. You've got carnivores and herbivores under the same roof. Not to mention, it looks like a safety hazard out there. He waved his hand at the ship then. Not this crap again. Do they look like they're hurting each other? She waved around her various adopted children who were quietly watching from the hilltop. They're family. We're all family. And I'll be damned if I let you take my kids from me. And they don't want to see me be taken either. Do you, kids? They let out a resounding chorus of no's, which made Nat One scowl. You have multiple adopted children from far too many species to be safe. You clearly don't have their best interests at heart, he said then, crossing his arms. Best interests? Like those government orphanages do. They lost their parents and you try to stuff them all into a cold, hostile, AI-controlled environment like that. They're all here by choice. Kids I saved and rescued after their parents died, except for Tiny. She nodded down at the Cahoon, who he thought was an adult until he noticed that the she sported a juvenile tusks only. She was a child then. A very big child. Her parents just gave it to me. They thought that she was the runt and didn't want to waste time raising a runt. But the joke's on them. Not one let out a huff. Look, I'm here to make sure the kids got a nice safe place orphanage and away from this criminal. So, are you going to come along quietly? He couldn't even finish speaking when the woman held up a hand. He saw the dearest child jump onto it, curling around in a ball mid-air. As soon as he landed on her hand, she tossed him at the Nut One's head. The hard-shelled species slammed into his face, bouncing off as he staggered back, clutching his head. Ah! Did you just throw that child at me? He asked as he looked at her and began to reach for his service weapon. Sure did, and he's good as a rock, isn't he? Mainly, I just did it to let Vesta get into position. She pointed down, and he followed his finger to look down to see the juvenile Snagtath grinning at him before biting his ankle. Nat One howled and stopped going for his weapon as he began to shake his leg to try and get the small carnivore off his ankle. But before he could manage to shake the creature off, he saw the human step aside as he gasped out that he revealed a charging Harnum. The horned herbivore slammed into his chest just as the Snagtath let go, and they went tumbling back down the hill, landing in a heap at the bottom. Do you see what I mean? They aren't eating each other, they're working together, Tafik said as he leaned over with the medkit in hand. Shut up, Nat One wheezed as he shoved the medkit away and slowly stood. She's going to jail, he muttered, and began to walk back up the hill with a limp. He drew his weapon before making it up to the top and saw that the children had resumed loading up the ship. He aimed his pistol at the human, and then she raised her hands. You are coming with me, he growled. Any objections? Well, you should probably know that you're standing on Casey. He really didn't want to, but he couldn't resist the urge to look down, and he saw a bright smile in the dirt, which made him gasp in surprise as the chemcell dropped her camouflage and inflated, sending his foot up into the air and making him off balance as his arm spun to try and keep him from falling. But before he could do that, the Goldarok leapt up to the top of the ship, flying down and slamming into his chest, sending him screaming and tumbling backward once more, rolling to the bottom of the hill in a heap yet again. Was all he could manage. That was a chemcell and a Goldarok working together, Nat One. Those two species are mortal enemies from a Deathworld, and that human has them convinced that they're family. Just let it go. Never. Nat One growled and tried to push himself up, but the Cajon, named Tiny, was walking down the hill. Hey, Mama says I need to sit on him until we're ready to go. That okay with you? She asked Tafik, who nodded. Sure, I'll save him some pain, Tafik responded. Traitor! Nat One gasped as the juvenile Kohan sat on him, her large bulk pinning him to the ground easily, and she settled in, and her thin tail flopped lazily around as she kept the SAP from getting up. She knows how tenacious you folks can be. One of her first was a Lawred, Lettuce Callahan. He picked up the last name to honor the old Earth cop she taught us about. She reached up, idly rubbing one of her horns as she spoke, a common trait amongst the Cowhorn juveniles. Really, Lattice? Didn't he save your life, Nat One? Tafik asked as the other SAP let out an annoyed grunt of confirmation. So your mother keeps everyone in check, regardless of diet? Oh, sure. She's got her beat stick sure, for when, if someone acts out, but only uses it when she has to. Plus, she's got Rex to help with some of the younger ones if needed. We all get along. I never thought that I'd get over my old family. But when someone chooses you, gives you a new family and treats you just like you're their blood, well, that's pretty great. Who's Rex? Another human? Tafik asked, but Tiny shook her head. No, he's the earth animal called a dog. Omnivore, descended from some sort of predator. He's really good at herding the herbivores and protecting them too. But we all do that. We work, live, sleep, eat, and fight together. Best family anyone could ever ask for. No matter what the task, we've got a brother or a sister perfect for the job. She nodded at that. So, you don't mind travelling in that? Tafik asked and he pointed to the ship. Don't mind how the ship looks, it'll fly just fine. There are some wheels set up inside so that we can just run and help power the minor systems if we get exercise too. We'll just head off to another planet and set up again. She's got a knack for finding spots that grow all kinds of stuff, well, and aren't too far from where we can hunt some small game. Sure, don't go hungry. The juvenile slapped her belly for emphasis. Clothes? Taffet asked. Shoot, half a dozen of us can sew, myself included. Plus, we get a hand-me-downs from the people we sell our produce to. In another month, we would have had a batch of the best glotatoes on the planet. She waved at the plot in the garden. If you water them 3 times a week, you're welcome to them when they get ripe. Medicine? He then asked. Mama's a doc. Well, a veterinarian. But it's the same thing to a human, you ask me. They're like building packs. Don't matter if it's all other humans or other animals or sentients. She shrugged and Tafik nodded slowly. So it sounds to me that she's got everything covered. You're well fed and safe and taken care of. Doesn't it sound like that, Nat One? He stressed, and the SAP let out a begrudging snort of acceptance once more. Maybe I can talk to the agency. See if they'll let you guys stay, Tafik offered. No thanks. About time we pulled up stakes anyway. Once we get assaulting the SAP, we figure we're worn out and welcome. We'll be just fine. After all, we're a pack, and we all look after our own. She nodded at that, and then gave Nat One side a pat. I'll get off with you when you promise to let us leave. Nat One was quiet for a few seconds before grunting. Yeah, fine. With that, Tiny nodded and got off the injured Lawred. Well, you two have a nice day, she said as she began to plod back up the hill. Nat One just lay on the ground for a while before finally speaking. I guess you were right. I think that I could have... He groaned slowly as he started to get up, and Tofik opened up the medkit. Taken the human, but I didn't count on there being a pack. Told you so, Tafik mentioned, as he got out some of the bandages and ointment. Yeah, Nat One muttered, as he looked back up the hill at the human and her pack. Her family got finished with the loading and the ship. How do you fight a mother with so many kids? You don't. His partner answered, and Nat One just had to nod with a bit of advice. If he ever had to deal with a human and their pack again, he was bringing backup. Lots and lots of backup. And that, my friends, is the end of this Reddit Quickie. I hope that you enjoyed. If you'd like to support the channel or the author, all the stuff is down below. And as always, I hope that you guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next story. Cheers.